Yeah, market's way up today. Explain that to me, please, somebody. You know, we have a war going on between Iran and Israel. And are people happy about that? Of course not. But somehow the market has figured out that it's a good idea. Why is that? Why? Why is the market up today? Why is oil stable? The price of oil should have skyrocketed this morning when the market opened. Stocks should have gone down this morning when the market opened. A rational market doesn't operate like this. So why is that? Why? Here's what I think. I think we are in a bubble, a giant bubble, maybe a bigger bubble. You know, I thought we were in a bubble a year ago. I think that bubble is bigger, and when it finally bursts, it's going to be a bigger bang than anybody can imagine. By the way, China are selling off our treasuries. And what that's doing is it's making it look like our economy is solid. Our economy is not solid. Our economy is very, very shaky. Sorry about the phone. It's very, very shaky. And now, not alone that, I have 6 people I know very, very closely who in the last 3 or 4 weeks have gotten approved for mortgages. One, a person who I know very well, is qualified for a mortgage. Legitimately. They legitimately have enough assets. They legitimately have enough money. They can legitimately pay their mortgage in a downturn. The rest of the people that got these mortgages, I'm telling you right now, they should not have qualified for mortgages. Now here's the worst part. They didn't buy those houses. They're not buying those houses from individuals. They're buying them from builders. This is what happens. When you have an inflated market, and the real estate market, as we all know, is slowing down, what happens is builders start giving incentives. Builders do business with banks, usually big banks. And the builder says to the bank, listen, we got to move some houses here. You know, we want you to qualify these people, but we're going to give them a great deal. You know, we'll give them some kind of a discount, or, you know, we'll buy back a percentage on the mortgage. It's an incentive for them, it's an incentive for you, and it helps us get rid of the asset. The problem with that is the asset goes on the bank's balance sheet. Builders don't care about the banks. And frankly, the banks don't care about the builders. Because what has history taught us? That if things go sideways and everything crashes, the banks, once again, will get a bailout. And if they don't get a bailout, another bank that's flush with cash will just come in and buy them out. And they'll buy up those assets, you know, for 10 cents, 15 cents on the dollar. Now, while all this is happening, of course, all of these properties are being lost or foreclosed on by the people who bought them. They're losing their homes. They're losing their investments. And then what happens? When they start to lose, the moment that they're ready to walk out the door and the banks are getting ready to put the padlock on it, all of a sudden, sometimes they get a bailout as well. You know, the banks will work with them to refinance. They'll give them, you know, 6 months without having to make payments. And you know what's hilarious is people, I have these conversations. I had this conversation with my accountant the other day, and he said, that's not going to happen this time. I said, oh yeah? Why not? He goes, well, that was a one-off thing during the pandemic. You know, they had all these incentives. They didn't want people to lose their homes. They didn't want people to lose assets. They just wanted to get them over the hump. It worked, right? Why would they not do it again? It's actually foolish to say that they won't do it again, because it worked once. It will work again. But it's not good for the economy. People are going to lose jobs. People already are way over leveraged in their cars and their homes and everything else. But I'm telling you right now, the market should not be up today. It should be down. And I don't mean crash down, but it should be down. There should have been, you know, at the open this morning, the minimum, there should have been a 5% correction. And yeah, as the day rolled on, and you know, there's rumors now coming out of, who knows, you don't know what to believe. There's rumors coming out that Iran now are getting so decimated that they want to sit down and make a deal. And they're even talking about the fact that, okay, we're done with nuclear. You know, you come in, we'll do inspections, whatever. In other words, there's talk of talks. There is no talks yet, but there's talk of talks. Now, the other thing that somebody said, which kind of they made a good point when they said, look, the Iran thing is something that's been hanging over the heads of obviously Israel and the United States, but kind of, it's like, it's a cancer for the entire world for a very long time. And some people, you know, smart people, I won't mention their names because it's not about politics, but some people come out today and said, you know, this needed to happen. This whole attack on Iran, it needed to happen. You know, there's a point where you have to say enough is enough. And the thing about that is, if that's the case, maybe the market is reacting and saying, okay, we're done now. You know, this is another problem, although not yet solved, but this is another problem now that's going to have to be addressed. And what is Iran going to do? You know, they have two choices now. They either get, you know, decimated and sent back to the Dark Ages, or they come to the table before they get overthrown. And there are a lot of people saying, well, this current regime in Iran needs to be overthrown. We need a new government there. Jury's still out on that. You know, sometimes the devil you know is better than the one you don't. And, you know, you could wish for a regime change, but don't forget, it's also possible that you could get a new regime that's worse than the old regime. You know, what if there's a vacuum there for a short period of time and the Taliban take over? You know, or the Houthis or somebody else. Like this happens, especially if you just get rid of the current regime and you throw in some kind of a puppet government there. Puppet governments never last. Look at Iraq, prime example. And there are many other examples, but Iraq is probably the closest one to your generation. So, regime change, I don't know about that. And if the current regime in Iran wants to survive, probably the best thing for them to do is to sit down and make a deal. And the other thing is, America and Israel, and frankly, the smartest minds in the world, the smartest countries, the people who understand Iran and how it operates, you know, it's one thing for them to have a nuclear weapon. I don't think that's the biggest fear. I think the biggest fear is them being able to protect that nuclear weapon. That's the real fear from the rest of the world. The fear is that somebody else will get their hands on that. Somebody who just wants to annihilate large portions of Israel or large portions of the United States. That's the real fear. The fear is not necessarily Iran having the nuclear weapon, but protecting that weapon is very, very crucial. And nobody feels confident that Iran have that capability or have even the infrastructure in order to do that. I mean, look, they're obviously really, really weak. Now, Israel is really strong, and Israel is very strong on its own without America, even though everything that Israel has came from America as far as weapons and technology and all that stuff. But by the same token, Iran is really, really, really weak. But listen, I am shocked that the stock market is up today. It's June 16th, 2025. There's a war going on between Israel and Iran, and the stock market is up. Please comment below and tell me why. Why do you think the market is up? Shouldn't it be down? Thanks for watching.